As I'm sort of going through the next stage of my writing, going through the next project here, it's interesting to see how my views now have changed a lot since really even my first project, which was several years into my writing journey. But even 3 years ago now, looking back at what I was doing then and what my aspirations were versus now, it's very, very interesting to see how much more I've kind of reverted my thinking and how much more I've kind of mellowed out a little bit. If you're watching my content, or watching my channel back, in 2022, back when I was sort of first filming this, back when I was getting that first book out there, I talked about how my long-term goals were really to get some sort of traditional publishing platform and try and get my books out there in some sort of award circuit. That was really my goal here, was to kind of go for awards, was to get my book traditionally published, and to kind of go more in the very kind of traditional path of a writer. And looking at it now, especially now that I'm into, this project here, and knowing and already thinking about, what the potential avenues are going to be for publishing, it's changed a whole lot, where my view is almost completely 180, where I really have I have far less interest in the process at this point of publishing. I have far less interest in how my book gets out into the world, and a lot more interest in the actual creation of my craft. At this point, for me, it's much more about, hey, can I put out a better book than the prior one? Can my aspirations be a bit more lofty in this book than they were the last two? Can I just go farther and deeper with some of these ideas and themes I've been trying to show in my prior works? And, well, I certainly hope to hit that. This is a big change from what I was thinking before. When I was at that keyboard, there were many times when I had this little voice in the back of my head being like, all right, just keep in mind what your goal is here. Keep in mind that, agents and editors are eventually going to be reading this, so keep an eye out for that. Be aware of that. Try to keep your word count at a certain word count. Try to keep these sort of ideas pretty well established. Focus on crafting that really good opening chapter, etc., etc., etc. And at this point, man, it is so much more about just the overall work. And it's in some ways very, very freeing. I think it's very, very freeing now to kind of go into this project with much less focus on if someone will pick it up, and much more focus on, is this book saying what you want it to say? Is this book doing what you want it to do? For me, a lot of it is, and a lot of this view change really is just getting a lot of satisfaction out of how my first two books came out in the process, and sort of enjoying that, getting much more joy potentially out of somebody stopping me and telling me, hey, I read your book and I really enjoy it, in a small town, as opposed to, getting thousands of people to pick up my copy, who I will never meet. I think a lot of it too is obviously just with my lifestyle now, having a kid, a lot of your perspective tends to change. And a lot of my external satisfaction, sort of the external validation that I was seeking, seems to have definitely tempered now, which is great. And so going to this project, it's freeing. There is an element that is very, very freeing here. As much as I torture myself to try and get this thing to sound halfway decent, as much as I'm sort of, I guess in my own way, kind of anguishing over a lot of the slogs that come up in this process, boy, I am in there's a freeing element there, of just not worrying about anything else but that. This isn't to say that I wouldn't be seeking traditional publication. I probably will try the traditional avenue, at least in some fashion. It might honestly just be more contests. It might just be writing contests as opposed to querying individual agents and just seeing how I do. Maybe there's a few agents out there who my book kind of fits a nice niche of theirs and we can talk. We'll see. We'll see. But boy, just thinking now a few years away here and what I intend to do to get this book out there, it very well may just be the same process I've done before. It might just be the same way. And oh boy, I'm excited for someone to finally read this. I really am. And I guess with it's fun to look back at how I used to be, and it's fun to kind of relax a little bit more with this. Take a little bit of, you put so much pressure on yourself with the story, to finally take a little bit of that pressure off. How it's going to come about is huge. For me, at least, it feels great. So, yeah. With that, today's session was okay. Again, not great by any means. We're heading to the slog here. We're getting through the slog. It's going to be at least probably a few more days of the meh kind of stuff before maybe I come out the other end a little bit better. So we will find out. But we're in it, and we're moving forward, and we're closing in on 1/3 of the way done of this challenge, which will be really, really fun. To get 90 days consecutive of writing is huge. So closing in on day 30, so this will be very exciting.